And we are live. Welcome to another edition of DT Live. For those of you hanging out in the YouTube chat, give me a yay or a nay on the audio. Can you guys actually hear me or not? Of course, I'll have to wait about 20 seconds or so for the delay on an answer. Or I could preview the stream a little bit. Yeah, looks like I've got sound. Yeah, everything sounds good to you guys. I got a yay from Ratmore. Appreciate that. Yeah, type the link in your YouTube. I don't know the link to what. Who are we speaking with? Was that to me? All right. Yeah, so today what we're going to be doing is we're going to run through another installation of the latest DTOS ISO I built last night. So added a ton of new stuff, fixed a lot of bugs, discovered a few new bugs, but lots of work since the stream I did, what was that, on Tuesday. So in the last 5 days, yeah, we've got a lot of new stuff in it. So one of the things is on the last video I did on Tuesday, that was the very first ISO I put out publicly. You know, it's still alpha, you know, but it was, you know, very, very early days. And it was essentially, I gave you an option of ButterFS or, no, I don't even think on that stream you had an option. It was either ButterFS or nothing, right? It was, but for the file system, it was ButterFS. You had to be Lux encryption, and a lot of people didn't like having to do Lux encryption. Some people did want Extend 4. I wanted Extend 4 actually. I was always going to add that back in. So now on the DTOS install script, you have an option of ButterFS or Extend 4 for the file system. You also have an option for Lux encryption or not. So that was the big things that, you know, I spent a couple of days this week. Hold on a second, guys. Look, guy. I'm just going to tell you this right now. If you spam the YouTube chat, I'm going to ban you from the channel so that you never post here again. I don't know what you think you're doing, but obviously you're going to piss everybody off in the chat, right? Everybody's here to have a good time, right? So if you clown in the YouTube chat, you've just got to go. So yeah, spam is bad. Yeah, I don't know why some people just want to spam stuff in the chat. I guess they just want to make themselves more important than the rest of you guys hanging out in the chat. Hey, my messages are so important, let me just spam the same thing over and over again. No, you gotta go. So that was a warning. This guy, I hit him for 24 hours. That's the only warning you get, though. The next time I do a stream, I see the same guy doing the same thing, I'm just going to ban you forever. So we just don't have time for that. No. Yeah, DT has the ban hammer and he's ready to use it. Yeah, it's nothing personal. You know, when I have to ban these folks, you know, it's not like they're pissing me off, but I know they piss you guys off, right? So, especially the ones that want to act crazy and insult other people. Now, that wasn't the case with this guy. That's why he's still around. But the minute, you know, somebody really starts some crazy drama, you know, I don't warn them at all. They just go. So, all right, yeah, so DTOS. So let's go ahead. You guys want the latest ISO. It's found at SourceForge. The link is in the show description. I'll also post it to the YouTube chat. I've uploaded several ISOs in the last week. I've deleted all the old ones. The only one up there right now is the one I built last night. It's labeled as an alpha release. Again, don't put this on production equipment. You know, test it in a VM or test it on a secondary machine if you want to test it out. And I certainly do appreciate people testing it out. One thing to note, though, and this is still the case, legacy BIOS is not supported. You need to install this using UEFI. Now, on physical hardware, I mean, most machines, unless it's something really, really ancient, has the ability to do UEFI. You may have to turn it on, you know, in your BIOS settings or whatever. But in a VM especially, most virtual machines like VirtualBox and Virt Manager, a lot of times they just default to BIOS virtual machines. You have to specifically enable UEFI in the virtual machine. So if you're trying to get in a VM, turn that on. Otherwise, you're going to run through an installation of DTOS, reboot, nothing's going to happen. The reason is it's going to create a GPT partition, you know, expecting you to be using UEFI, and if it's a BIOS virtual machine, you know, nothing's going to happen. So don't want you guys to waste your time and have to redo an installation. Yeah, hello from El Salvador. This is Night Fox, yeah. Yeah, Michael's in the chat. And what else? I should give NixOS a shot. I've installed NixOS, I don't know, many times over the years. I played with it lately. Obviously, it's changed a lot in recent years. As far as it's a much easier thing to deal with than, say, you know, 5 years ago. Especially 10 years ago, you know, it was a nightmare kind of a distribution to work with. But now, you know, it's got graphical installer, and, you know, nowadays it's a pretty easy enough. I wouldn't say it's a new user distribution by any stretch, but it used to be, you know, really kind of a, you know, you kind of had to be kind of a hardcore Linux user to get into NixOS back in the day. Many people don't realize NixOS has actually been around for a long time. The Nix package manager, of course, was originally how the project started and grew into a distribution. But I want to say, you know, the Nix package manager first started getting developed nearly 20 years ago. Like, you know, it's been around for a while. Yeah, I almost got my Qtile looking like yours, and I'm so happy. Thanks for the kick, DT. Loving Python. Yeah, Python's pretty comfy. So let's go ahead and run through a quick installation of the latest DTOS, because I think that would be the easiest way for me to actually show you guys what is new in this. So let me pull up Virt Manager. I'm going to create a new virtual machine. Now, if you're in Virt Manager, you may want to go to Preferences and go to New VM. Make sure that you have UEFI enabled in this menu, because if it's system default, that is BIOS. So make sure it's creating UEFI virtual machines for you. And then create the new virtual machine. In my case, I need to navigate to this ISO right here. Again, I made this ISO late last night. I really didn't have time to test it much. I hope everything goes well, but if it doesn't, well, that's fine too. That's the purpose of these streams, is we're testing things out. And I know I'm going to run into some issues. I'm only going to give it 2 threads of my 24 thread CPU, just so I have plenty of CPU for the stream, because obviously the stream's going to take a lot of CPU. I don't want this stream to suffer for me installing this VM. I'm going to do a DTOS -03, because this is the 3rd test I've done here in the last couple of days. We'll do ButterFS Lux, because we may run through a couple of different installations. But I'm going to go with kind of the default settings first. Then we'll run through maybe a second installation later and give it some other choices, just to make sure some of the choices in the menu system do actually work. Yeah, FS man, why not support BIOS? Well, because right now, just the way the script was written, you know, it just creates a GPT partition. Most people are probably going to want UEFI, so that's what I went with. I may eventually have it in such a way that we could do it both ways, but, you know, for right now, it is what it is. Kind of like, you know, when I started with the script, we were just doing one file system, and then I added a second one. You know, got to start small. I can't offer everything in the script. It would be a nightmare to script this thing by putting so much stuff in it at the beginning, because there would be stuff that would be half-assed and broken, and, you know, I'm going to slowly add things to it. It's the only thing that makes sense. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run tmux. Just in case there's an error, tmux has the ability to scroll back in the TTY here. And then I'm going to run DTOS install, all one word. This is the DTOS install script. First, it does a lsblk, shows you all the drives in the machine. Which disk do you want to install to? Now, in a virtual machine, typically you're only going to have the one virtual drive, in this case, /dev/VDA, and then choose the number of the disk, number 1, because there's only one drive here. Then choose the file system type. ButterFS recommended, extend 4. So 1 for ButterFS, 2 for extend 4. I'm going to do ButterFS for this installation. Disk encryption, so this is your Lux encryption. Yes is recommended, and number 1, and 2 is no. I'm going to do with Lux encryption. Then the kernel, you have your standard Linux kernel, the LTS kernel, and the Zen kernel, 1, 2, or 3. I'm going to choose 1 for the standard Linux kernel. Then choose your locale. If you don't know what to choose, chances are you want English US UTF-8, unless you have some reason to choose something else. The key map, now key map, depending on where you are in the world, a lot of people use a lot of different key maps. Here I'm on a US keyboard. Time zone, obviously you need to know your time zone. Pick that from the list and then enter a host name for the computer. I'm going to call this computer DTOS. And then enter the Lux encryption password. Now, if we didn't choose to encrypt with Lux, this wouldn't appear, but let's enter a password. So Lux password is set. Now enter your root user password. Now the root user set. Now create your standard user. I'm going to call this user DT. Enter a password for the DT user. And then would you like to install the Qtile desktop? Yes is recommended. No, it won't install Xorg or Wayland or Qtile or any graphical application of any kind. It will still install all the command line stuff, all the packages like my fish config, bash config, and things like that. But you're not going to get any graphical applications if you choose 2 here. Choose 1 unless for some reason you want to test out the second option. And then review your summary here. If all the choices look good, choose 1 to continue with the installation. One last safety check. Formatting the disk /dev/VDA. Do you want to do this, right? Because all data on that drive will be lost. It's about to format that drive. Do you wish to proceed? 1 for yes. Then it's going to go ahead and create the partition table with GPT. That's why it's UEFI only right now. Then reflector is going to run. Make sure it grabs us the fastest mirrors because the DTOS install script here, this is a net install. So it's kind of important to have some fast mirrors here. This is going to take it may take about a minute for reflector to run this command, but that 1 minute command will save us maybe a few minutes later. So that's why we're going to go ahead and let it take its time to run this reflector command. But the whole installation process typically completes in under 10 minutes. This is a very fast install. Doesn't install like a ton of packages. It's a pretty minimal install. So we're going to let this run for about 10 minutes. Again, maybe less. It'll complete. We'll come back and then we'll see what the latest DTOS looks like. Yeah, back to the chat here. I think Lux is an encryption. What does it encrypt? Your drive, your hard drive, the drive you're installing to. So basically, your main partition. So it's gonna it's gonna create a boot partition, and then it's gonna create your main partition where all of your user data is stored. It's gonna encrypt that drive. That way, if somebody steals your computer, they can never get into that drive unless they know your Lux password. So for security reasons and privacy reasons, it's a pretty nice thing to do, encrypt your drives, unless you have a reason not to. Otherwise, anybody can take a live USB stick and cheroot into your machine, and they have access to the data on that drive. So let's see. Yeah, good morning, Joe Panico. How you doing? Long time no see. Welcome to the chat. Yeah, this bash script is awesome. I need to learn it. Now, there's a lot of stuff going on in the DTOS install script. And I keep adding more stuff. It becomes more and more complicated every day. It'll eventually get to the point where I'll probably need to go back and clean up some stuff, make the code a little easier to read at some point. But right now, I'm just worried about making sure, everything kind of functions. Looks like right now, all the packages are installing. It's running a packstrap, standard packstrap command like you would when you're installing the base Arch system. So this is the thing that takes the most time. This will take, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 minutes. Then after that, it'll copy over a few things from the ISO into the new installation. There's some config files and stuff that'll get copied over that I put on the ISO that get put into your new installation. It'll start some systemd services automatically for you, and a couple of other little things. Yeah, use a strong and secure password. Tap, tap. Yeah. Hi, DT. Does the script create a separate home partition? No, it doesn't. Trying to keep the script as simple as possible. Again, I can't add a ton of options to it. And one of the things when you start scripting something like this, trying to make a script that is all things to all people and has infinite options becomes a nightmare to maintain. It's going to be riddled with bugs. It's going to be very hard to test out all the options that are possible in the script as well, the more stuff you add. That's why right now you're only getting 2 file systems. Pretty much everybody wants either Btrfs or Extend4 anyway. That's all you're getting, not adding anything else to it. The bootloader, you don't even get an option. I'm just installing Grow. Most people really don't care about which bootloader gets installed. If for some reason you really care about your bootloader, just do a standard Arch install, right? Do your standard command line Arch install. All possibilities are available to you on that, right? For me, though, we're going with Grub. Yeah. Can it dual boot? I did not, you're going to have to do some manual partitioning for that, so no. Yeah, and that would be tough to work out too, dual booting, like scripting it in such a way that yeah, that could be tough. Yeah, that's probably a situation. Just do the standard Arch command line installation. Probably where you're going to have to go with that, because you're going to have to run fdisk and partition your drives, exactly the way you want to do it. Let's see, do I use Reaper for my audio? No, never used Reaper. I know what the program is. I guess it has a Linux version. I know it's proprietary software. I know a lot of people on Windows and Mac use it, as far as, people that do like podcasting and things. I've never played with it though. Know nothing about it. So you're going to jump into cursor. Not sure what that question means. Jump back to the installation here. Yeah, it's installing. It just finished doing a pack strap of a lot of the standard base packages. Now it's doing a pack strap of all the Qtile desktop specific packages. So all your graphical applications, Qtile, and SDDM as our login manager. It's going to install Brave as our browser. PCman FM. It's going to be our file manager. And of course, a lot of dependencies and things. Going to install some fonts, a couple of GTK themes, some icon sets. Just a few basic things. So again, I'm not installing a ton of stuff, but I got about 493 packages that are part of the graphical application packages that have to get installed here. So let that keep working. Hey DT, can you make a updated video about Kdenlive? I guess I could at some point. Yeah, I do like playing with Kdenlive. I do think more and more people should give it a try. Really fantastic piece of software. A lot of people underestimate Kdenlive. Yeah, Joe is asking, I heard you say earlier that you only had the last ISO on SourceForge, but I see 5 going back to a year. Yeah, that's the history, but if you clicked on those older files, I've already deleted them. Some of those ISOs wouldn't work, you know. They try to install packages that I'm no longer maintaining. So, yeah, when you actually go into files, here, let me switch over to my desktop and go back to my desktop on my own. There we go. So if you go to project activity, you'll see activity of past ISOs I published. But when you go into files, I'm just keeping the last one here. And once I release the next one, I'll probably delete this one just to free up space. Also because these are buggy. I mean, these are alpha releases. So, once I do some fixes, I'll delete these ISOs. No point, keeping them around. Especially the really old stuff. There were some things I published like a year and a half ago that were the old DTOS. It was set up completely different. It was packages that are no longer in the DTOS repo. So it'll be searching for packages that don't even exist anymore. So, and the installation has completed. All right, so let's go ahead and do a reboot of the virtual machine and check out this latest build. Hopefully it turned out all right. We get a grub menu, so the installation was fine. Let's hit enter. And I did this with Lux encryption, so I have to enter a encryption password. Now, if you just type your password, it will not show your password, but it does show how many characters are on screen. You will notice it gives you a hint, though, or it did when I first, before I started typing, tab. If you hit tab on the keyboard, it says no echo. Now you can type your password, and it doesn't actually show the length. Now, most of the time, that's not important, but for somebody like me that does some recording, if I was worried about that password, you guys knowing the exact length of my Lux password, I could hide it. Or especially in real life, somebody standing behind you. Well, if somebody's standing behind you, you shouldn't be typing your password in front of them anyway, regardless of whether it's on screen or not. They could look at what you're typing on the keyboard, but you get the idea. Here we are. We get to our login manager, SDDM. Let's go ahead and log in. And let's see if this latest build actually works correctly. All right, we get my Qtile desktop. Now, what has changed here in the last few days? Well, lots of bug fixes. Let's start with the bug fixes because there were some obvious things on the last stream. The Qtile panel. I've got these widgets here. Now, CPU and memory. These widgets were here before, but they didn't actually report anything. They had CPU, and then it said import error, and memory was mem, GP, something, import error. Like they had some errors, right? That's because they had dependencies that these widgets were expecting to be on the system that were not on the system. I can't remember exactly what the dependencies were. There are a couple of Python libraries, though. It might have been the click library and the rich library. If I remember correctly, it was those two, I think. But anyway, I've added those now to the packages that get installed when DTOS installs, and these widgets now work. There was also some font problems. I installed a couple of extra fonts. One I know really helped was installing Font Awesome for better Unicode support as far as some of the glyphs here, especially with the widgets. So all of this looks right. It all functions right now. I also made the conky smaller, which, I display some key bindings here, some important key bindings. I tried to reduce this list as small as I could. The reason is I know some people will try this out on a laptop. a laptop is only going to be like a 768 height for resolution. So I tried to limit the conky size to being just enough space on a laptop that this would fit. Now, most people may not even need the conky, especially after you learn the key bindings. But for right now, you know, if you're brand new to this, obviously you need to know what my key bindings are, some of the default key bindings. Now, one thing I decided is, you know, how are people going to get all the key bindings? Because I can't put a million different key bindings in the conky. Yes, you could go look at the Qtile config, you know, and read the Python code and get the key bindings. I wanted a way for you guys to get the key bindings. So what I did, let me hit Super Enter to launch Alacrity. Let me zoom in. I added a couple of new scripts. Qtile keys is a listing of all your Qtile key bindings. This script, it's not my script. I'm not exactly sure where I got it. If I was on my home computer, I could tell you guys where the script comes from, but obviously I'm not on my home computer. I could go to my browser history. I think Qtile keys, this particular script, may actually be a script that the Qtile guys themselves put out, but it's a way to quickly get all your key bindings. That's great. I don't want, though, people having to go to the terminal and run that script. So I've configured it in such a way where it's a graphical application where if you hit my DTOS logo here, it launches a graphical program, a script called Qtile keys -yad, because it displays all that in a YAD display box with a very white blinding background. Let's change the GTK theme. So let me launch LX Appearance, set a dark theme, set a dark icon theme, so that all our GTK applications are dark now. And now, anytime you need key bindings, just hit that button, and here we go. And I should probably keybind that as well to give you an easier way to bring this up without having to click on an icon. So you can see Super W brings up the web browser and yada, yada, yada. Super W brings up Brave. Of course, we installed that from the chaotic AUR. If you're not going to use it, close it and go to the terminal and do a pacman-S, install whatever browser you want to use. If you're going to use it, though, you might as well set it as the default browser and then, you know, choose your light or dark mode. Do you want to, you know, send diagnostics back? If you do, fine. If you don't, that's fine as well. In this VM, I'm just going to turn all that off. And, you know, now your Brave browser is set. I've also added quick launchers up here just to make it dead simple for people that are brand new to tiling window managers and maybe not going to read some of the key binding stuff. Got some Unicode symbols here, 4 different ones. The lion one is the Brave browser, right? Brave has the lion logo, so that's why I went with that glyph. These are just Unicode characters here. The rocket is the Alacrity terminal. The folder, of course, is your file manager. Let me turn on the hidden files and folders because I'll probably want to look at them. And then the guitar symbol is VLC. VLC, our graphical media player. And I had considered whether I really want to ship VLC out of the box. I do think it's important to have some kind of multimedia player here, you know, audio player and video player. VLC, mainly a video player, but also does well with audio. I do actually ship with an audio player, a different audio player on the system, but I know most people are not going to like it. That audio player is MPC, which uses the music player daemon, right, MPD. And MPD is enabled out of the box. It's one of the system D start jobs or whatever. When you log into Qtile, it's going to start the music player daemon. Now, I don't have anything in the music folder because that's the directory MPC is going to look for stuff. I can copy some audio files over because I know where some audio files do exist on the system. So just as a test, I'm going to copy over .config/dm scripts dm sounds, and I'm going to copy that over into music. These are not really music files, but they are MP3 files of like ambient sounds. Now that I actually have something in music, let's do an MPC update. Let's see, MPC, I've got to add first, MPC add. It's going to look into the music directory now, which has all of this stuff. Let's just add it all. So just give it the directory. And now, if I do an MPC toggle to play, you guys probably can't hear that, but it's a bird chirping. If I want to turn that off, MPC toggle to pause it. Of course, most people are not going to want to run MPC as their music player. Certainly, you're not going to want to run it from the terminal. Well, I actually have a program called DM Music that's actually part of my DM scripts. If I do Super P, H for the DM hub, one of the scripts here is DM-music. Music player, play, toggle, current playlist, queue playlist. Don't have any playlists, obviously, out of the box, but toggle. And it's playing the same bird chirping sound, the ambient sound. Let me toggle that back off. So now, again, I kind of like MPD/MPC, but a lot of people are going to want a regular music player. So yeah, VLC is there. If you don't want it, just uninstall it and install whatever you want. Install Rhythmbox, which is really nice, or Audacious, which is really nice. One of my favorites, Dead Beef, really nice music player. So that's some of the obvious changes was the new keybinding script, the new quick launchers, the widgets now are actually working. Conky has been changed a little bit. Oh, one other thing. Let me Super Shift Q. Lock screen is better lock screen. Let me type my password to unlock the screen. Now, on the last stream, I mentioned, hey, wouldn't it be nice if every time we change the wallpaper, the lock screen changed to that wallpaper? And I said that's a simple thing I could do. It's a one-line thing I could add to one of my scripts. So let's check it out. So to change wallpapers, right now the only way I have to change the wallpapers in a graphical sort of way is one of my DM scripts. It's the DM-setBG script, set background. I've got it hotkeyed to Super P, B for background. And let's choose set to set a new background. I'm going to choose this wallpaper right here and then hit M on the keyboard to mark. It's very important. Hit M to mark. And then Super Shift C to close the window. We just changed the wallpaper. And in the background, better lock screen is running a generate image with various effects like the blurring effect and all. It's creating an image that it will now use as your new lock screen. It's not going to be active right away. You may have to wait a minute or two for it to finish creating that image. But if I've waited long enough now, Super Shift Q to get to our session menu, lock screen. And it changed the image. So how cool is that? So again, that was something I mentioned on last stream. I told you guys I would definitely add to the next ISO. I had a bunch of stuff that I wanted to add last time. Let me make sure. Oh, one of the other things I mentioned is text editors. Obviously, Emacs is here. Emacs, when you first launch it, Emacs is compiling software. It's installing various Emacs programs because Emacs is basically its own operating system, has its own package manager, and it's installing a whole bunch of packages that are in the DTMax config. It's going to hang on vterm toggle for some reason. Just close it. Open a terminal and type REM. It's an alias for restart Emacs. It's going to kill the Emacs daemon and restart the Emacs daemon. Now it's going to ask, hey, do you want to compile vterm module? This is why it hangs, I guess. I need to figure out a way to automate that so it would just automatically compile that vterm module. But right now, yeah, you actually have to restart it at least once. And now DTMax launches properly. Now, there may still be some compiling and stuff going on in the background. If you're looking at Conky, you can see Emacs taking up 50% of the CPU right now. Now, why is that? It's because initially, Emacs, again, it's doing some stuff. There's still some stuff going on in the background, compiling all the software. After a few minutes, though, it should complete. You may end up needing to restart Emacs 2 or 3 times just to make sure that everything did eventually get installed correctly. But it looks like it's fine. Let's see, what else? Oh, I mentioned editors. Right now, all I have is Emacs. NeoVim is here. I've aliased Vim to be NeoVim. So if you type Vim, name a file, it's actually NeoVim that it's doing. So you've got Emacs, you've got NeoVim, you've also got Nano. But I don't really have any normal graphical plain text editors. And I know some people will want, you know, a simple plain text editor. That's technically Emacs is a GUI editor. It is a GTK application, but it's all text. You know, you never know it's a GTK application looking at Emacs. So I installed Zed, XED. So if I do Super Shift Enter to launch Rofi and look for Zed, you know, it's there, text editor. Zed's an old fork of gedit. Gedit's really nice. Zed's really nice. Matter of fact, Zed, I believe, uses gedit plugins if you need to install any plugins. But it's a nice, simple text editor. It doesn't have a lot of dependencies. That's partly why I chose it. Also, GTK application, so kind of fits with the rest of what I'm installing out of the box. See, I mean, I mentioned I was going to do that last stream. Add another graphical text editor for people that would want it. Anything else? Now, one last thing I mentioned last stream, in case anybody doesn't remember, Sudo is not here. Remember, DTOS, we're actually removing Sudo and we're going with doas instead. Now, if you type Sudo, Sudo will still work, but it's not really Sudo. It's actually doas running. And the reason is I linked doas to Sudo. So I do a sudo pacman-syu to update the system. It's going to ask for your doas password because you're really running doas pacman-syu. I give it my password. Should be nothing to update because, again, DTOS net installer. We just did the install, so there should be no updates. But just to verify that doas works the same way. Doas pacman-syu. If you want Sudo on the system for some reason, you just really need Sudo, that particular package, and some people may have some exotic needs. Just do a doas pacman capital S Sudo, and Sudo will be right back on your system. Then configure the sudoers file to make sure that everybody in the wheel group has root privileges, and you're good. Doas, it's already configured out of the box for you. If I do a vim/etsy/doas.conf, we don't have permission to even view that file. Wow, so that's got some really strict permissions. So I had to run this with sudo privileges and doas privileges, right? Remember, it's linked. But you can see permit, persist, set env. Everybody in the wheel group can run everything that's in the path. And persist is important. This means that every time I run doas, I don't have to enter a password. One interesting feature with sudo, if I do a sudo, pacman-syu, and hit enter, it's going to ask me for a password, type in a password, and then say right after it, I want to do a sudo, pacman-r to remove a particular program. It won't ask me the password the next time, because after I enter it the first time, there's a few minutes where I shouldn't have to enter the password again. Well, doas out of the box asks you for your password every single time, unless you have persist as part of this line. So that's what persist means. So after I enter the password one time, it'll remember it for a few minutes. That way I don't have to keep entering it. So that's doas. Let's see, anything else? There were so much things that were changed. One other thing, let's do a lsblk. Swap ZRAM using 3 gigs. I gave this VM 6 gigs of RAM. ZRAM is creating half of that for a swap. Originally, I was doing however much memory you have, ZRAM would create a file that size. Now ZRAM is dynamically allocated, so it's not like it's using that that size all the time. It's only, in use if it needs it. But if it's a situation where you're somebody like me that has 64 gigs of RAM in their main machine, a lot of you guys have 32, especially some of you guys that game, you got a lot of RAM in your machine. You probably didn't want to create a ZRAM of 32 gigs or 64 gigs or whatever it happens to be. So now the DTOS install script creates the ZRAM half the size of your RAM, which I think is still plenty if you need a swap. Let's go back to the chat. See what you guys are chatting about, and then we'll come back and discuss some of the existing bugs that are still here, some of the bugs that I fixed. Let's see, you use Conky and Gentoo, you may look at it again. Yeah, I'm not much of a Conky person. I had these Conkys mainly just because, it helps for documentation, especially for the key bindings and the window manager. If I thought people would understand how to use Qtile without this, I wouldn't have the Conky here. But, out of the box, it's going to be there. If you don't want the Conky, you can always remove it from the Qtile auto start file where it gets launched. We need a Conky replacement for Wayland. I wasn't aware that Conky didn't work on Wayland, but I haven't tried, so. Yeah, Conky is a bit buggy on Wayland, so it kind of works. Okay. How does DTOS deal with PAM? Is it stable? I mean, I haven't played with it too much, but as far as I haven't run into any issues with DTOS on these ISOs. I haven't tried to enter anything that didn't work. The only thing on a standard Arch install that has a hard dependency on Sudo is the base devel package. Like you're installing Arch, you typically run a pack strap, then you do base for the base packages. So that's Pacman, the and the core utils and all of that stuff. All of that stuff is good with DTOS. None of that is hard, has a hard dependency on Sudo. It's fine with DTOS as well. But then a lot of times you also install the base devel packages for make and things like that, to actually build packages and compile software and things like that. Some of those programs do have hard dependencies on Sudo. So to get around that, that's why I had to do the link. I'm sim linking DTOS to Sudo, basically to trick those programs into thinking Sudo's still there. But when they run Sudo, they're really running DTOS. And I haven't noticed that being an issue yet. If I do, I'll report back on it. Or if any of you guys are testing this out and run into any issues, of course I want to hear about it. But right now it doesn't seem to be an issue, but we'll see. Hoping for the day systemd's run 0 doesn't suck anymore. Yeah, So the problem with run 0 is actually what I mentioned earlier, that Sudo and DTOS, if you have the persist label in the DTOS config, they have the ability to remember your password, or so you don't have to enter it for the next few minutes. Run 0 does not do that. Hey, enter your password. Okay. And Pacman SYU. All right. Hey, run 0, Pacman SYU. I got to enter the damn password again. Right. And that's going to be like no one's going to like that. So I would never in a million years remove everything and just, say run 0. Right. Nobody's going to be happy with that. Let's see. Hi, DT. I'm using Garuda. Every time update, Pacman stops in the middle of the update with timeout error. So that means some package it's looking for is not there, or some mirror that you're trying to use, maybe it's no longer there. This is something that's just been happening the last few hours, last day or two. I wouldn't worry about it. Just give it some time. It'll probably sort itself out. This is something that's been going on for a while. Yeah, it's probably a mirror that you've got enabled using somebody else's, like a third-party repo. Yeah, SourceForge is painfully slow. I would agree. But, you know, it's free for me to upload stuff there, so that's why we use it. Manjaro just works. Yeah, Manjaro is great. All right, so let's get back to what we were doing here. I'm going to actually minimize that VM. We'll come back to it later, but so I've got this to-do list, this org to-do list. So I've had a million things that I've written down in the last week, things I've needed to work on. Some of this stuff is fixed, some of it is not. I'm just going to go through this with you guys. So the CPU and memory widgets in the Qtile panel. So that was CPU and memory that didn't work on the last ISOs. They now work. So, So let's go ahead and mark that as done. The volume widget in Qtile. It depends on also utils. So before, the volume widget would always display a volume M for muted, and you know it would never do anything. You know, by default, you should be able to adjust the volume with the scroll wheel like I am. You know, if I want to mute it, I just click on it and it's muted. Click it again, it's unmuted. That's the way it should work. But it's using the Amixer program, which is part of the also utils package on Arch. I've already added that to the ISO. So this is another one that should be fixed. So let's go ahead and mark that as fixed. Add a GUI editor. I told you guys I'd add a GUI editor. I actually did that, so we'll mark that as fixed. On the last stream, I told you guys I would have better lock screen, create a new lock image on wallpaper change. It looks like that's working. I'll mark that as fixed. Add packages that DM scripts depend on. So on the previous ISO, these packages were not on the ISO. And they needed to be for some of the DM scripts to work. They're now there. I'm going to mark that as fixed for now. Hopefully they are fixed. Clean up the copy because it was too big for laptops and make it all 12 color schemes. Haven't really implemented changing color schemes in an automated way just yet, but I got the conky set up for that. So the conky I think is good. Add GTK theming configs for a default theming. I have not done that. Add Qt theming. Have not done that. Work on DTOS color scheme script to automate theme switching. I've got something that I used to use for an Xmonad desktop. I need to reconfigure that thing. Basically rewrite the script for Qtile. That'll probably be on the next, big update of the ISO. Then add the Qtile keys YAD scripts so users can get the key binding information. So that's clicking a button here and getting, that information. I believe that's working, so we'll mark that as done. Add the launch bar widget, so that's your icons to launch Brave and PCman FM and all of that. That's good. Logout with DM. Logout is buggy, possibly due to PaulKit. Okay, so this is an error or a bug that I think I know how to fix, but I'm not positive. So if I do Super Shift Q to do the DM logout script, so your session manager, you got lock screen, which we've already seen, logout, reboot, shut down, suspend, and quit. Quit just quits you out of this script, right? So if I hit quit, it just gets out of the script. But logout, one of the ones you're probably going to use the most, right? Choose yes. Do you really want to log out? Kicks you back out to SDDM. Let's log back in. When you try to log back in, well, it looks like it worked that time. It let us log back in. Sometimes it hangs. Sometimes it hangs for like 2 minutes because there's something that's going on. I haven't really figured out the bug, but let me Super Shift Q. Let me log out again. Get back to SDDM. Let me log back in. You know what? It looks like it's fine here. I don't know. I don't know if it's a problem or not. I wrote it down at one point, so I'm not going to mark that problem as fixed. I will leave it here. I will keep investigating the issue. Dunst notifications. I have Dunst installed for the notification boxes. I haven't themed it in any way. I need to theme it at some point, so that's still on the to-do list. I haven't created any kind of configuration for NeoVim. So, view full screen. So NeoVim, if I do a vim bash rc, it's actually NeoVim. This is just a standard NeoVim, not configured in any way. Just straight vanilla, which is perfectly usable. That's, but some people may want it at least configured a little bit. Things like adding line numbers and maybe an appropriate color scheme, although the color scheme is fine. I'm not going to create some massive NeoVim config because it's just unnecessary because, again, NeoVim kind of works out of the box. It's very different than something like Emacs, which has to be configured because Emacs is nothing until you configure it, right? It's essentially a programming language and the interpreter for the programming language. That's all Emacs is. You actually have to write a config, which if you want to see the config, space FC for space find config. This is the Emacs config. You got to do all this. You got to add all these blocks of code and do a lot of stuff to make Emacs, what you see on the screen there. So NeoVim, I don't know. I probably should theme in some way, but I may not. I don't know. Fix license README issues for some of my GitLabs and the DTOS/etc. Just making sure I've added some new packages here in the last couple of days. I just need to make sure that everything has a license and a README in the repo. That's a me problem. Really, it's not going to affect you guys at all. Add MPD MPC with config. So I've already done this, I believe. Because it looked like MPC was working earlier. MPC toggle does play something. MPC toggle stops it. It's there. Now, how I achieved this, I basically created a package that installs a custom MPD config for you, places it in your home directory, and you guys didn't have to configure MPD in any way. If I do a do as pacman-S DTOS-MPD is the name of the package. What this does, I'm not going to install it. Well, I could install it just to reinstall it. What it does, it places a, well, it doesn't, I found an error. It actually didn't place the config files in that. That's just an error. I should rewrite that. It places them in /etc/dtos.config/mpd. I'll make a note of that error. But if I cd into /etc.dtos.config mpd and do an ls, there's my mpd conf, right, config file. Basically, I've already configured it for you, and during the DTOS installation process, this file gets put in your home directory. If I cd back into home and go into home/config/mpd and do an ls, there is that mpd conf. You want to see what it says, we can do vim mpd.conf. Basically, it sets your music directory as music, which is kind of what you would expect. Create playlist directories, a database file, and I create a lot of this for you as far as just empty files and directories, just so it's there. Also make sure that the user is commented out. By default, it will try to start MPD as your user, unless I specify a user. So it should work for everybody. Give me just a second, guys. Got a text message here. It might be important, so I will read it. Hate to be unprofessional and read a text message on stream, but, you know, family stuff sometimes, especially here. Me in the last couple of weeks had a death in the family, and I've been dealing with some stuff, so I just want to make sure everything's good with my folks. So All right. I'm back to the desktop here, get out of the VM. And let's keep marking the things that are done as done. So MPD, MPC, I think I'm good on that. I'm going to mark all of that as done. And add a DM music key binding. Remove key bindings for this and that from Qtile. So right now, Qtile has a key binding for this program that used to be part of DM scripts. It's not there anymore. So I need to remove a key binding from Qtile. That's easy. Just delete a line. And then add a key binding for the DM music script, which is the MPC script. That's easy enough too. Again, just add one line to the Qtile config. So probably the next time I put out an ISO, I bet, because that's such an easy fix, that'll probably be there. Yeah, a lot of this stuff is pretty easy to get to. All right. So I've already removed Sudo for DTOS, so done that. I've already removed the Wayland session from the Qtile login. By default, Qtile has a X11 login session and a Wayland login session. The Wayland session is not going to work for you, at least not with my configs and the way DTOS is set up. You know, it's just a black screen. You got a hard reboot to get out of the thing. So just to prevent you guys from accidentally getting into that thing, when you're install DTOS, I remove the Wayland session. Now, if you really want to try out the Wayland session, if you want to experiment with it, just reinstall Qtile and it'll pull back in that Wayland login session, and it'll be in SDDM as an option for you. But again, I wanted that by default to be removed, and it is. Add an option for yes, no with Lux. I'm pretty sure this is working. I've tested with Lux and no Lux. Everything seems to be working with that. There was an issue with the key map with the DTOS install script. I fixed this. What this issue was is, well, let me go into DTOS install. Well, let me navigate to the proper repo. So during the DTOS install process, you get asked about the disk, choose your file system. Do you want Lux or not? What kernel do you want to get? Your locale. Your key map, your time zone. Well, one of the things I did, although it doesn't look like, why is that not here? Maybe I didn't fix this. There it is. Okay, load keys. That's on the key map, right? When you choose key map, before, what it would do is it would store your choice. Say I choose I don't know, like a German key map or something, you know, like DE, or Belgium, BE. You know, it'll store that as a variable. And then later on, during the installation process, it will run what it needs to set that as your key map. But the problem is, until you get to that part of the script, it's still using the default US key map that's there by default. Meaning, for example, when you're typing your passwords, like the Lux password and the root password, it's still using the US key map, or it was previously. I made sure to go ahead and load the key map right away. That way, when you're typing your passwords, you're typing what you think, because it wasn't there before. And then later, when it roots into the new installation, it loads the keys the second time into your new installation, so you get the key map set there as well. So that should be fixed. ZRAM, I made the ZRAM smaller because somebody suggested I do that, and that was an easy fix. You just divide the RAM by 2. That's all I had to do, is add those 2 characters there, right, to the code and the DTOS install. So I've done all of that. Add space CC key binding as org, Control C, Control C. This is interesting. So my DTMax config. When you mark things in a to-do list, typically you do Control C, Control C, Control C, Control C, Control C, Control C to undo it. I added a space-related key binding because all my key bindings in DTMax typically begin with space as the leader key. So now I should be able to do space CC, but that doesn't work in. Maybe you know what? I've just recently done that. I bet I haven't restarted the Emacs daemon. Yeah. So it's not working on this computer, but I bet if I go to the VM and launch Emacs just to make sure that that's there, do metax org control C. Now it's not set to a key binding either. So that's something that I still haven't done, but I will eventually add that. And that's not necessarily a DTOS specific thing. It's a DTMax thing. But because DTMax is such an important part, I will eventually add that key binding. Automate the nerd icon install. So that's to get your mode line and everything working properly in Emacs. I've already done that. Control C to mark that done. Web presence. I need to eventually create a DTOS website. I'm going to use Hugo. I've already kind of started on it. It's not public or anything yet, and I've barely gotten started on it. Eventually, we need some kind of DTOS community thing for support. Web forum, Matrix, Discord, mailing list, Reddit. Now, I'm not going to use most of this. I would never like have a Matrix or a Discord, like a chat room. I'm never going to be there, and it would just be a mess. Plus, those things cause drama. Probably set up some kind of forum, or we may just use Reddit. You know, proprietary service, but Reddit kind of works. I'm already on Reddit anyway. Most of you guys have Reddit accounts. So do I. I've already got a subreddit. It's been there for years. r/distrotube. So you want to post there for any DTOS related support questions, at least right now. That is already there. And we may add some other stuff. And then I've been working hard on getting DM scripts cleaned up, finding out scripts that work. These, I guess, last I checked, were working. These, I'm not sure if they're working because they're scripts that other people contributed. Now, a lot of this stuff was stuff I wrote, and this is stuff other people wrote, and they had special needs for things that I don't like. The DM Lights program, it's about backlighting and things like, you know, I don't know. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. I know these don't work because I tested them. They're not working as of now. And these are DM scripts that I recently removed from the package. But yeah, lots of stuff to do, right? But I've got a lot. I mean, look at the grayed out things that we just marked. That's a lot of things in the last week that we took care of, right? And some important things in there, right? Adding the option to not encrypt, you know, that was an important thing. Adding the option for ButterFS and Extend4, that was some work on that script. All right. We'll go a few more minutes. So you guys got anything to ask in the chat? Get it in now. Actually, we'll probably go another, I don't know, 15 minutes, maybe even another 30 minutes. I might run through another quick installation on camera. We may, because it only takes 10 minutes. Let's actually run through a quick installation using no LUKS encryption and Extend4 as the file system this time, just to make sure some other choices work. Super chat here. Daywalker. Hey DT, I'm a bit of a Linux noob, but I've got quite recent hardware, and I'd like to use KDE Plasma. Should I just get comfortable with Arch or try something like Fedora 42? Doesn't really matter. You know, distributions, I mean, they're all essentially, at the end of the day, it's, you know, essentially the same kernel, same drivers, the same bash shell, and the same core utils, and, you know, a lot of the stuff under the hood stuff that, you know, you're a Linux noob, a lot of that may not make sense, but a lot of the stuff under the hood that's driving Plasma will be the same on any distro. So yeah, if you want to try out Fedora, yeah, go with it. Really doesn't, like I said, yeah, I'm not going to tell you what distro to use. I've used many, so yeah, you'll be fine. And Fedora is good as far as like hardware support and everything. I have run Fedora on like my physical hardware in years past, and it was fine. There was nothing wrong with it. Let's see, real quick. Anything else in the chat? I know I missed a ton of questions and comments, so yeah, suggestions for distros. Yeah, try KDE, Manjaro. Yeah, Manjaro does a great KDE spin. one of the better ones out there. Yeah, all right. So doesn't look like anything else I really need to address right away. So let's get back into the VM. Oops. There we go. Make sure I'm still streaming. All right. So let's go ahead and shut down this VM, force it off. Do I need to delete it? Yeah, just to save some space. So that was DTOS with ButterFS and Lux encryption. That was an older test run of DTOS as well. We'll go ahead and free up some space by deleting these unused VMs. Now let's create a new virtual machine. Arch Linux. Go forward. Give it same, about 6 gigs of RAM, 2 threads, 20 gigs of space is plenty. DTOS. Extend 4. No Lux. Let's run through this and see if this installs correctly. And that'll be it for the stream today. This will, again, the installation typically takes about 10 minutes or less. So we just want to see if after the installation we get a grub menu and that I can log in, right? And the file system's extend 4, right? So once again, I'll do tmux just in case there's an error. I can scroll back and see what the error is. Run through DTOS install. Choose 1 for the drive. I'm going to choose 2 for extend 4 here. I'm going to choose 2 for no disk encryption. I'm going to choose 2 here for the LTS kernel. Why not? English US UTF-8 US key map. Chicago time zone. DTOS is the host name. Root password. So it skipped the Lux password because I don't have one, right? But root password I still have to enter. Create a user. DT. Create the user password. Confirm it. Yes, to install Qtile desktop and get our summary. You can see file system type, extend 4, encryption, no. Do I want to do this? Yes. Do you really want to do this? Yes. And away it goes. And again, this will take about 10 minutes, maybe a little less. Just to verify that those choices are respected in the script. I know they are because that's actually one of the first things I worked on was making ButterFS and extend 4, options. All right, yeah. Any questions, comments in the chat while we wait? Yeah, Arch install was super easy though. Yeah, if you're talking about the automated Arch install script, yeah, it's pretty easy to use. It can be kind of flaky. Sometimes it can be buggy. That's my only issue with it. Partly is because that script obviously is one of those scripts that actually tries to do everything. It tries to have all possible configuration options you could want, which makes it, again, from a development and support point of view, it makes it kind of a nightmare probably to maintain. You've been using XFCE for over a decade, and I was thinking exactly the same. LXQt. LXQt is actually quite nice. As far as, want something that's a nice, lightweight desktop environment. Yeah, perfectly okay. LXQt. XFCE is still nice. There's nothing wrong with it either. Either one. Which is fast, Extend 4 or ButterFS? They're both fine. Extend 4 has been around a little longer. If you want rock solid stability, Extend 4 is probably what you want to go with. ButterFS, more modern, newer file system. What's interesting about it is it has the ability to take snapshots of your system in case, for example, you run an update and then after the update things are broken. With ButterFS, you can roll back to a previous snapshot, basically a previous state of the system with the, before you installed the new stuff. To hopefully, obviously get back into your computer. Right. So, and I could have showed you some of that. I haven't played too much with the Btrfs snapshots and tried to automate a lot of stuff with that. I will eventually get around to that, but it does work. Every time you update the system in DTOS, Snapper does take a snapshot. And if you want to roll back, there's already a program installed called Btrfs Assistant. And you just choose where you want to roll back to, reboot the system, and it will roll back to that state. I'll actually show you that on camera after this VM finishes installing. Again, I haven't really spent a lot of time trying to configure all of that. It's not something I necessarily use, snapshots. I back up everything on drives and on GitLab, like my dot files and things. I have a Nextcloud server that I also keep a lot of things synced to various machines. So I've got a lot of different things going on to back up a lot of my important stuff. So I'm not really that worried about snapshots. But I know a lot of folks do, and that's part of why I went ahead and did Btrfs and why I recommended it during the installation as the recommended install option is for, computer novices that may end up in a situation where that snapshot potentially could save them, because they're not the kind of people that are going to have a live USB stick of a Linux operating system hanging out and, having to put that into the machine and then cherooting and then fixing their problems. Your mother and your grandmother, they're not going to do that, right? So the snapshots, again, could help people like that. Although I don't know why you would put your grandmother on DTOS. Like, this is the wrong distribution. So yeah, don't put Granny on DTOS. Yeah, XFS. Yeah, XFS is a very stable file system. Still used a lot in the server space. Yeah. Again, I tried to keep things as simple as possible. Most people really don't care about XFS as far as a desktop file system. If you do, I'm trying to limit choices on this script just to keep things as maintainable as possible. If you really want XFS as your file system, just do a standard Arch install. DT, can I have a Mastodon invite to Fosstodon? I haven't logged in to Mastodon in forever. I'd have to remember my password. It's been a while since I've posted on Mastodon. Why do you need an invite to Fosstodon? Is it they not allowing new signups or something? But now that you've mentioned it, probably some of the other people here, I bet, have accounts there. They might invite you now that you put it out there for them. All right. Yeah, still installing. It's about to install the Qtile desktop, all those packages. Again, the biggest part of the script typically takes about 5 minutes or so. But once this block of 495 packages, once that's installed, it's just a minute or so of other stuff that happens at the end, where some stuff gets copied over into the new installation, some systemd services are enabled, and then a few more minutes, just a couple more minutes probably, and that installation will be over. Is CachyOS good? Yeah, perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with it. So it's an Arch Linux-based distribution, right? If you're cool with Arch, you're probably good with Cachy. You're probably good with Endeavor and Garuda and Manjaro and all the rest, right? If you're comfortable maintaining an Arch system, you're pretty much comfortable maintaining any Arch-based system, because it's all the same. They're all Arch in the end. So. And no matter how I try, no matter how much I try other desktops and testing, nothing can get me away from Plasma. Plasma's fine. Yeah. Let's see. DT, what have you done with Luke Smith? I don't know what Luke Smith is doing these days. I haven't seen that guy on YouTube in years. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, as far as I have no personal contact with Luke Smith, if that's what you're asking. I don't know anything about the guy. I mean, I appeared on one of his live streams one time, you know, like 7-8 years ago or whatever. I think he emailed me once or twice years ago about something. But yeah, I don't know. You know, obviously he's not on YouTube. He's doing other things in life. Moving on to hopefully better things. See, what is the best window manager? Yeah, you got to try them out to see what works for you as far as window managers. I don't know. Did you want a floating window manager or did you want a tiling window manager? Like that's kind of important to know because there's a big difference between the two. Yeah, DT, happy Easter to you and your followers. Yeah, agreed. Happy Easter to all you guys. It looks like getting close to the end here. Finished installing all the packages. Yep, this is it. It's going to enable network manager. Copied, it basically ran an rsync of a bunch of stuff from the ISO into the new installation. Generating the locales. Here in a minute, once it finishes with the firmware modules here. The last thing will be removing Sudo because DTOS has already been put on the system. It's building grub right now. The last thing will be you'll see a bunch of systemd services enabled. There we go. Yeah, created the symlinks for systemd. Now let's reboot. We're not going to spend much time in this just to verify that extend 4 without Lux works. Let's boot into it. Obviously, we're not going to be asked for a Lux encryption password this time. It's just going to go straight to SDDM. Hopefully. And we're waiting. Oh, just take us a second. All right. Log in. And there we go. Let's run a lsblk. And there we go. And just to verify that the file system is extend4, I'll give it the -F flag. And yep, VDA2, extend4. Everything's working there. I was going to show you guys how to roll back the snapshots, but I'd already deleted the previous VM, so I can't show you that, unfortunately. So we'll do that maybe on the next stream. I'll try to do another one of these, in the next week or two. The next time I have some massive updates. I'm going to have updates on DTOS pretty much every day. I'm like every hour or two, I'm pushing new things to some of the DTOS related repos. Go ahead and delete this VM. If you go to my GitLab, I mean, I know some of you guys had been following, like if you go to like the install script, this particular repo here, you go to history. I mean, I've pushed like 8 times. And that is yesterday, me in a hurry last night trying to fix things, MPD, MPC, pulse audio, change the ZRAM. I did all of that late last night trying to get the new ISO built last night so we could test it out today and see how many times I pushed on the 17th, 16th, 14th, 13th, which was when I did the first live stream, and then all of that. That's just with the install script. And the ISO, lots of things going on here as well, different commits. Built a lot of new packages. Some of the stuff that's going on in this, which they've got their own separate repositories, but building a lot of packages, maintaining a lot of different stuff in the DTOS core repo. So yeah, if you're watching my GitLab, gitlab.com/DTOS for all the DTOS related stuff, yeah, you can see some crazy activity, but it's been fun, and people keep reporting bugs. I had a guy yesterday, he reported like 7 or 8 bugs within a couple of hours. He did some testing. Actually, he was a YouTuber. What was he? Hold on just a second. go to my GitLab and check his name. Linux Mitch. This YouTuber here. He reported over on my DTOS package build GitLab, which where he reported that stuff wasn't really the best place to report them, because the package build repo is specifically for packages I'm building for DTOS, but it was fine. But he reported like 8 things. And I believe I fixed all 8 things yesterday. Right after, like a report every few minutes, I quickly push out the next update. He actually did an installation of DTOS, I guess, on his channel. Yeah, I saw this this morning. It was in my YouTube recommendations. So thank you to this guy. Guys, go check out this guy's channel, right? Linux Mitch. Matter of fact, it doesn't look like I'm subscribed. I'm going to go ahead and subscribe to him. But appreciate, if he's watching, appreciate him actually letting me know all of these bugs. This was great, because these are some of this was stuff I was going to get around to eventually, but some stuff like he really helped me out on, because I didn't know those bugs existed until somebody actually tested it out. He I want to say he's done like a dozen or more installations of DTOS in the last week, trying out each new ISO that I pushed out. I pushed out 3 or 4 different ISOs. So, and that's great, because obviously I'm trying out the new ISO. I probably run through 100 different installations of DTOS in the last week. Not even kidding. Every time I build an ISO, because it's not like these ISOs all the time work. I build an ISO and then test it, and if it works as expected, great. Maybe I'll push it to source forge, but most of the time they don't work as expected, and I have to fix something, rebuild the ISO again. So a lot of work goes into this. A lot of work. I know some people have asked, tested out DTOS on various hardware. I haven't done any hardware installs, and I know I need to test it on some laptops. Some of you guys are trying to install it on laptops. Maybe you're running into issues. I currently don't have a laptop to test this out on. I have 2 really old laptops. And by really old, I have one here, you can see behind me, that kind of sort of works. It's really old, very underpowered. I have another one at home. I can't get it to work at all as far as power up. It's dead. So I really need some new equipment to test out these ISOs. If I keep going with this project, that's one thing. We will eventually need some equipment. If you guys can help out, I keep mentioning this too. DTOS is something you're interested in. Feel free to donate. Subscribe to my Patreon. Donate through PayPal. Whatever you can give, it would help. Because I know eventually I've got to get a laptop if I'm going to keep this going, because this is going to be something I have to test all the time. May also need some external drives that would also help some of the testing as well. I do know somebody that tried to install DTOS the other day on an external drive, mentioned he failed. I don't know what the problem was there. I have an external drive, but I'm storing backup, like important stuff on mine. I can't wipe it out to test out DTOS. But eventually, I'll get some more hardware and test this stuff out. I know we need to test out Wi-Fi. I don't currently install DTOS on anything that has Wi-Fi. That's another thing. I know some of you guys have mentioned, you have to run through IWCTL or whatever, the standard Arch Linux stuff you do at the command line to get your Wi-Fi working. So, sorry about that. The phone was ringing. It looked like a spam call. But yeah, we got more testing to do, but we'll keep working on this stuff as we go forward. Any last questions or comments before we get out of here today? We'll call that a stream. We'll keep it under 90 minutes. Hopefully this will get synced over to Odyssey in the next day or 2. Sometimes these very lengthy streams sometimes take a little while to get synced over to Odyssey, but usually they're pretty good about getting synced over there, as long as I keep it well under 2 hours. In this case, I try to keep it to 90 minutes. Yeah, your oldest laptop is a ThinkPad L510 with a Celeron. Yeah, I love the Celery processor. Those were the best. Yeah. Yeah, the celery processor. Yeah, you have an Elite book from 2014. Nice. Yeah. Let's see. Qtile does floating. I mean, every tiling window manager does float windows if you want. I mean, if I want to, I can just hold the super key and grab the mouse and, you know, with the right button, adjust it, and with the left button, drag it. I mean, I can. So yeah, I mean, every tiling window manager has the ability to float a window if you need to, because sometimes you want to resize things and put it exactly where you want on the screen. Doesn't go the other way though. Typically, floating window managers, they don't have the ability to tile, or if they do, it's a very limited kind of functionality. No floating window manager or desktop environment has workspaces like on separate monitors like the way tiling window managers do, and that's really one of the big limitations. Is, you know, the traditional desktop environments, they just do workspaces in a completely different way than the way your tiling window managers does. So, because I know, you know, you've got plugins for GNU and KDE to kind of turn them into tiling window managers, but the fact that it sees, like on a triple monitor system like I have, as the whole thing as one big workspace, kind of makes it not really a tiling window manager. Let's see. Just installed Ubuntu. You use it for distro hopping on your test machine. I'm guessing your Elite book. Yeah. And you're testing the new Ubuntu that was just released, probably Ubuntu 25.04. It's great. You know, you got a machine that's 11 years old that you can still install like a new Linux distribution created in 2025. It actually still kind of runs, right? Yeah. Yeah, you might try DTOS on HP Pavilion laptop from 2009. Wow. Yeah, good luck with that. Yeah. Yeah. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and shut it down. Thank you guys for hanging out. Before I go, I'll show some names on the screen here. Some of the patrons that help out with what I do. Sincere thank you to each and every one of these guys and to you guys in the chat. All right, guys. Peace.